If there's anything we've seen in the history of the United States foreign policy is that its decisions end up coming back to bite them. Now here's another prime example of that. The FBI has indicted several American white supremacists for allegedly being radicalized and receiving training from the Ukraine's neo-Nazi Azov Battalion. That's right, that is the Nazi battalion in US-controlled Ukraine that receives funding from the US, Canada, and Israel, ironically enough. Now, according to this indictment by the FBI, 4 American members of the Rise Above movement have violently attacked and assaulted counter-protesters at several white nationalist and white supremacist events throughout the U.S., including the violent Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville last year. So, these Nazis from overseas that totally aren't Nazis, according to the mainstream media who essentially refuse to acknowledge their white supremacist roots or even quite often just pretend they don't even exist, is now operating essentially within the U.S. and are training U.S. white supremacists. The named individuals are alleged to have used the internet to coordinate combat training in preparation for these events and have celebrated their acts of violence in order to recruit members for future events. So in other words, they show a definite plan to increase their numbers in the future. Like they are planning something bigger to grow as supremacist organizations. Now, the FBI agent Scott Byerworth states that the Azov Battalion is a paramilitary unit of the Ukrainian National Guard known for its association with neo-Nazi ideology and use of Nazi symbolism. So essentially what you have here is an FBI indictment that shows that American white supremacists are being funded and trained by white supremacists overseas, which U.S. foreign policy has been funding and supporting. So essentially the U.S. government has just admitted that it's funding white supremacist movements in Ukraine. They are funding the Nazis. They say, yes, we are funding these groups. And then another section of their government says, yes, they are white supremacists, and we are charging these people for being involved with them. So essentially, yes, the U.S. government is now essentially, in a roundabout way, admitting that they are funding white supremacists overseas in Ukraine against Russian interests. Now, the recent indictment against the RAM member shows that the U.S. is training to provide the Azov Battalion and is therefore coming back to roost in the U.S. This is a constant theme we have seen throughout the history of U.S. foreign policy. As soon as they start building groups in another country to attack somebody else, they eventually end up coming back to the United States and attacking them. The U.S. created Al-Qaeda. The U.S. created the jihadists in Syria to attack the Syrian government. And now some of those jihadists are carrying out attacks in other countries. And very possibly could be coming to the United States very soon. Who knows? This keeps happening over and over again. The United States creates many of its own enemies out of sheer incompetence. It's not a conspiracy, something used to just scare the population to create a threat to demand control, as many conspiracy-oriented minded people would say. It's just bad foreign policy. The government actually really is just incompetent in this case because of the nature of the way that these situations are carrying out. They can't just send U.S. troops somewhere to do something, so they do have to create these armed groups. And these armed groups do end up coming back to bite the U.S. for their actions. And we're seeing that once again here. But what's probably most significant is all, now, on official U.S. record, the U.S. has admitted that they are funding white supremacists in Ukraine.
Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.